denying without integrity, interrupting without listening, prejudging without understanding, slandering without compassion, defending without cause, arguing without thinking, and resisting without reason.
Okay. So we're going to have 7 steps, and they're things that we're trying to do for 40 days in a row. And every week we're going to look at one of those steps, we're going to break it down, we're going to talk about it, okay? And then at the same time, every week we're going to try to dismantle a habit that is not serving us, that is destructive.
And it's seek first to understand my opponent. Well, I mean, I'd hate to throw your parents in as opponent, but that's the case sometimes. It's adversarial, especially when you get to be old enough to where you're 14, 16, 18, 20. It's like, man, you're learning how you want to do things. You know, you've developed a life, you've got a good mind, a strong will, you're expanding boundaries, and all of a sudden, you don't feel understood. And guess what? They don't either. You get me?
The whole how parents don't really understand what we're going through as teens. Because I know sometimes my dad, he doesn't understand.
Well, you all have been around longer. You know, you've been through more life. You do know more. I mean, you can't live for 50 more years and not know more. But at the same time, to be able to say, hey, I don't know this. Can you explain this? Like some of the conversations that I have with my dad are the best ones for me have been when he's asking me. So, how are things at your school? Have you ever dealt with these issues? And just being able to just explain that with him and not him coming to me saying, oh, I know how it is. I've already been there. You know what I mean? Like it's a totally different vibe. So I think with y'all's generation, it really is, for me personally, when you all take an interest and just want to learn and just say, hey, so what's going on?
So it's asking sincere questions and listening because we want to understand.
Exactly.
And what's the first step on the 7 of this project?
Active listening.
Seek first to understand. Yeah, active listening. But seek first to understand. All of a sudden she breaks his heart. What's the next move? Blast it out. And then it goes viral around your school.
Where does the stress come from in that kind of situation?
I don't know, anger, kind of stress from wanting to, I could have used so many things against them. I could have just went off, but it was just stress from trying to keep myself cool, I guess, and kind of started insecurity and all that,
I think a lot of it comes from like reputation and like image, like not to sound like in like a selfish way, but like even when people are saying things like that, like Lena said, like you want to say something back and be like, oh, well, you did this and blah blah, but then that just makes you look worse.
Exactly.
So she's just sitting here taking it and everybody's watching it and on social media like, oh, did you see what blah blah said? And you can't do anything about it.
Now, how often have you seen that happen? Has anybody ever seen that happen?
Yeah.
Everybody has seen that happen? Okay.
On the news, I heard about it.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Yeah, with you.
You and Blue need to leave the room or you're going to be corrupted.
Yeah.
But the new normal is everything is click, 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 video, Vine, bang, Snapchat, tweet. And it's just like, that's just the way, you wouldn't even think anything of it because it's always been that way for you. The first generation's ever had it like that your whole life.
Like being in touch with your feelings of where you're at and like the every breath kind of thing, because I try to practice that and it brings in your gratitude towards life when you're really paying attention to those little things. But the thing about the Raz was really cool to me because like I forget that I can control that because I feel bombarded by the media and all these things going on that like I forget that I can turn that off and that I do have a voice and I can say like, oh, I'd rather like read this book or do that, and I don't have to be on Facebook for hours. Like forget that I'm making that choice to like put myself in that environment.
We're talking about just weed.
Just weed?
Yeah.
I walk down the street and I hear kids getting off the school bus talking about it. And I'm not talking about just middle schoolers.
Correct.
And that actually hits me a little bit closer now.
Yeah.
I think something risky that people think isn't a big deal is that kids nowadays think it's like easier and safer to just sell like weed. Like, like I mean, obviously that leads to the drugs, but they think, oh, you know, if I saw my friends a couple like dye bags or whatever, you know, it's not gonna be a big deal. But all those kids, it always ends up the same way. Start hanging out with bad people, do bad things, go to jail, get expelled, everything. It's the same road. And I see it in so many like freshmen and sophomores.
It's people you wouldn't really look at and say, yeah, that guy's a stoner. It could be anybody who's like an opiate addict, or you see like just honor roll students or valedictorians dying of a heroin overdose. And like when my family first found out about my addiction, it was like they were shocked. It's like you don't look like a heroin.
You don't
addict.
fit the
Yeah,
profile.
I was like, well, yeah, it was, and it made it that much easier to get away with. Like, you know,
Yeah.
You just wouldn't. There's no really stereotypical person you can point at and say that person's going to be a junkie.
So, yeah. So these programs that they take your money and let your kid come in, and then they relapse and they kick them out, well, they're going to relapse. So we're going to kick them out and send them back home to a mother who's enabling them.
Because they say, well, that's part of the process, but yet, if they relapse, they're out of here.
Right.
Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding. Anyone who's never made a mistake has never tried anything new. I want to know God's thoughts. The rest are details.